As we've been reading through the Bible chronologically using Guthrie's chronological reading plan, today we find ourselves in Proverbs. And Proverbs is part of a wisdom literature that includes some of the Psalms, Job, Ecclesiastes. And so some of you have asked me from time to time what software I use and how do I study and how do I go about getting the information compiled into a place where we can present it. So I thought I would take just a few minutes just to show you Logos, how to navigate it, so that if any of you are ever interested, I know that we have a couple of seminarians in here, so if you're interested, you can get the software and you can begin your own Bible study. So Logos, the reason why I got it primarily for seminary study, and it is having all of the books. I brought some of them here that would normally be part of the print editions, and it's all of these books, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, put into a piece of software that is easily accessible. And you'll see in just a minute, if I'm doing research on Proverbs 1:7, I'll be able to span the entirety of the Bible, in the entirety of both the language and commentaries, in order to take my Bible study deeper. So, by way of example, in my last seminary class, this was BE 109, it was the study of a selected group of books of the Bible, including Ruth and some of the Psalms. The final was a comprehensive view of all the people and the places and the times and the words associated with all of those books. Normally what I would have done is I would go to the theology books, handbooks, dictionaries, and so forth, open up the books, write them down, make copies of them, do some type of cutting and pasting, and it would take literally hour upon hour upon hour. But with Logos, what I did was I took each one of the words, whether it's a person or a place or a time or a theological concept, I looked it up into one of the 8 Bible dictionaries that I had. And then when I found it, what I would do is I would go and I would make what's called a clipping. And so what you can see here is this is my study guide for the final test in BE 109. And it's all of the people in this case, and then we go to the places, and then we go to the different concepts. Now the really nice thing about organizing it in this way for the test is not only do I have the information that I can compile, I can then write it out, I can print it, I can put it on my iPad, and study it any time that I want. But it also, more importantly, has the reference. So in this case, this was the Eason's Bible Dictionary. So if I wanted to go and study even more, then I could go back to this reference, look it up, and then it continued to expand my study. For the purposes today, if we were looking at Proverbs 1, and even more specifically, if I put in Proverbs 1:7, I now have available to me within half of a second all of the commentaries. So if I were to open the commentary window, you'd see that I have at just my fingertips over 20 and probably at this point close to 30 commentaries on the Proverbs. So if I wanted to take, for example, the Bible Knowledge Commentary, I could look up Proverbs 1:7, and I could get an overview of the Proverbs and then drill down to the details about each one of the verses, whether it's a word, here's a Hebrew word here, or it's a concept or an outline. So if I went back to the passage guide, I could look up the outline of the book, and I can see the entire outline for the entire book of the Proverbs. But let's say I wanted to take that outline, because it's always good when we're going through a Bible study. Many of the Bible studies kind of talk about digging right in, starting your observation of the passage and then interpretation of the passage. But in talking with so many of you, it seems like it's better to start with, what is the book trying to say? What's the overall? What's the flyover information associated in this case with the Proverbs? And then I begin to drill down. So in this case, I could take a look at the outline. I could take a look at the commentary. But if I wanted to continue to drill down, deeper and deeper, I could even take a look at the construction of the passage itself. So you can see here, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Now, if I didn't take Hebrew, I could just ignore the interlinear part of it. But let's say I wanted to take a look at a particular word, like fear. I could take, at this point, you can see, hyperlink would come over to fear, and I have the definition and every occurrence of where fear occurs from Genesis to Revelation. Because the word fear has an entire range of meanings. It could be trembling fear, like the men who saw the angel in Jesus' tomb. They were so filled with fear they fell down like dead men. It could be reverential fear. It could be awe and wonder. It can have a range of meanings depending on the context. So you could take a look then at the context. If I wanted to see, since the Proverbs, as my commentaries would have told me, is primarily about wisdom and knowledge and the outworking of a moral life, if you will, the cause and effect of good and bad behavior, wisdom and knowledge, fool and wise, these juxtapositions within the Hebrew poetry, then I could also take a look at things like knowledge. In this case, what I've done is I've looked up the word knowledge, and so I've done a Bible word study, which is under Guides, Bible word study, and now I can see every occurrence, whether it's Hebrew or Greek, on what knowledge is. And let's say I'm interested in the knowledge that's contained within Proverbs 1:7. And I can now take a look by clicking this simple infographic. I can take a look at all of the occurrences of knowledge. And you can see that I have some in Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, but then I hit Job and the Psalms and the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, and then you get into Isaiah and then continue on in the prophets. Now I can go back if I wanted to take a look and see exactly how is knowledge used in each one of these settings. What this allows me to do is to give me an entire look of a single word and how is it used. In this case, it's a Hebrew word, so how is it used in all of the occurrences in the Old Testament. Likewise, I could go to the New Testament, which would be the Greek word, take a look at the exact same thing. Now I've got a view of what does the entirety of the Bible say? Because God inspired, what does God then say about knowledge? And then I could do exactly the same for wisdom, and now begin to get a feel for what is knowledge and wisdom. Because sometimes, even in modern times, we use knowledge and wisdom kind of interchangeably, almost as synonyms for one another. But the Bible can use them sometimes interchangeably, but sometimes different. So now I can take the same exercise that I just did, and I can create a clipping. So if I wanted to take a real quick look at all of the commentaries associated with Proverbs, but I only wanted to take bits and pieces of it for study later, I go and create a document called a clipping. Let's say I call this Proverbs. And let's say I just want to know, what's this? Let me just save this for later. I don't have time right now, but let me save it for later. Do a right click, and then I add to the clippings called Proverbs. Now I have the stuff I was looking at, but not just the whole commentary, not the entirety of the book, but just this one section. I've cut it, I've pasted it into the clippings for review later. This is now synced on all of my devices. I can pull that up on my iPhone, I can pull it up on my iPad, and it's also on my logos.com webpage, so I can look at it in any format that I have for review later. So this is just a really quick overview about how you might study just one passage, but I can go as deep as I want to go, or I can stay at a high level to get big concepts all within just a few seconds. So that's an overview of Logos.